VikesNow, Dustin Baker, the July 6th edition. I am here with Josh Frey. Josh, how was your 4th of July, sir?
It was good. It was good. Hung out with the family, grilled a little bit, all those typical 4th of July things, It was a good weekend.
And you are in Mankato, correct?
Correct. Yep.
And you usually would try to go to training camp at Egan, but you have plans this or in a couple weeks. Is that correct?
Yeah. Timed it just perfectly that I'm going to be gone for probably the first 2-3 days of training camp. So we'll see what ends up happening here.
All right, fair enough. All right, so I asked you on the show to go through the top 8 Vikings players heading into 2022 because we're about 3 weeks away from camp and everything in 2021 is in the rear view, so it doesn't make any sense at this point to talk about who was the best last year. So in terms of impact, production, and forecast, let's go up the snake with your top 8 players for the Vikings this season. And the way that I lined it up here, there's 8 huge names on the Vikings in my opinion. So let's see if you follow that typecast or if you have anything wild. Start with number 8. Who is that for you, sir?
All right, number 8 might be a little bit surprising to some people seeing him this low on the list, but between a couple injury issues along with the running game potentially being a bit more dead this year, per Justin Jefferson, I think Dalvin Cook is going to be the 8th most impactful Viking for the 2022 season. Lots of depth at the position. Rushing numbers could take a bit of a hit. And like I said, the injury issues past couple of years, can't always rely on him to play the full 17-game slate. So bit of a dip for Dalvin this year.
Yeah, I think it's noteworthy that he's guaranteed to miss 2 or 3 games. And at this point, as Vikings fans or Vikings writers, you hope that's all it is. Because we remember in his rookie campaign, he missed the whole damn thing. He missed a lot of the following year. Thankfully, the last 3 seasons he's had normal injuries. I think we get bogged down and thinking, oh, Cook's so injury prone, which is true. But over the last 3 years, he really misses a normal amount of time because running backs do get banged up, and it's a rarity for an RB1 to play an entire season. So, all right, that is a bit of a surprise because we're so accustomed to, we can feel it in our bones, Cook being the focal point of the Zimmer-led offense. And if indeed that turns into Justin Jefferson in a Cooper Kupp role, naturally, so to speak, Cook would take a little bit of a backseat. We'll figure out if it's down to the tune of number 8 or not. So Cook at number 8, who do you have at number 7?
Number 7, I'm going to go with Eric Kendricks. He one of the best middle linebackers in the league, obviously. Numbers took a bit of a step back in 2021, especially in coverage, but he's definitely one of the more impactful players on this defense. And the Vikings are going to need him to continue to be that if they're going to have any chance of contending this year. But between Jordan Hicks being there as well, and then you've also got Zadarius Smith and Danielle Hunter at the outside linebacker positions this year. There's a little bit more depth at linebacker than there has been in years past. So he's not as vital as he has been in the past. So I'm going to put him there at number 7.
All right. Kendricks, number 7. He got lucky last year because the whole defensive product was a little bit sour, especially at the end of halves, the second quarter and fourth quarter. His down year was masked by an overall shitty Viking season, mediocre Viking season, I should say. And so nobody really cared that his PFF score was only like 60 something, down from like 90 something in 2020. So hopefully his 2021 performance wasn't the beginning of a age-related dip, but he's not crazy old. We shall see. Cook at number 8, 7 Kendricks. Who's number 6?
Number 6, hopefully this guy's in contention for comeback player of the year this year. Danielle Hunter at the edge, outside linebacker. When he's healthy, one of the best edge rushers in the game, 14.5 sacks in 2019. We all know this. But Zadarius Smith opposite him this year, a little bit more beef in the middle there with Harrison Phillips and Dalvin Tomlinson. I think this is all lining up to be a breakout year, as much of a breakout year as Danielle Hunter can have for 2022. So hopefully he stays healthy. Kind of counting on him missing a game or two here or there between getting banged up. But we'll see how long he can stay on the field. If he does, he's going to be impactful for this defense.
If he is this low, number 6 on the Vikings list, do you foresee that he shares some of the kudos with Zadarius Smith? Because otherwise, Hunter is usually a top 4 type of impactful player.
Yeah, I could see both of them being around the 10, 11 sack range this year, a little bit of impact in the running game as well. So I think there's going to be a little bit of switch off, especially if they do, like they did in OTA, switch between the left and the right sides.
Okay.
So with the versatility, they might have to share the impact, I guess. Like you could probably slot either one of them there at number 6.
Okay. All right. Well, I think this is a relatively fair spot, especially for a guy who's missed the most of the last 2 seasons, to see how he bounces back. Because right now in this honeymoon offseason phase, we're just under the pretense that, well, yeah, Hunter is going to be back and he's going to be good, but he really has missed a lot of time the last 2 years. So I think we're in the hopeful part of his prognosis. All right, let's do number 5. Who is it?
Number 5, I slated Jordan Hicks as the most underrated acquisition for 2022. But I've also said the most underrated player on this Vikings roster is Brian O'Neill. Okay. I'm going to slot him there at number 5. Okay. He provides so much, not only at pass protection at that right tackle spot, but he also opens up so many lanes for Dalvin Cook to run in those zone running schemes. And I think he's got the potential to be an all-pro caliber right tackle. The Vikings just need to start winning some games so he gets that recognition.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, we'll take it. So for better or worse, when I just listed my 8 of who you'd probably say based on big name recognition, O'Neill wasn't in there. So somebody is going to get snubbed, and trying to think about who it will be. I have 2 in mind. We shall see. All right. So number 5 is Brian O'Neill. A lot of respect from you for him. He's a handsomely paid right tackle, so he's not disrespected in that arena. However, not many people know who he is outside of the state of Minnesota. All right. Let's recap them, and then we get into the top 4. You had Dalvin Cook at number 8. Number 7, Eric Kendricks, linebacker. Number 6, Danielle Hunter, coming back from I'm drawing a blank. What was his injury?
I think was it a torn pec?
Yeah, torn pec. Around? Yeah, he had Anthony Barr's injury from 2020. I was thinking of Irv Smith there for a minute with meniscus. All right. And then number 5, Brian O'Neill. Who is number 4?
Number 4, and it's funny that you brought up Justin Jefferson being the Cooper Kupp type of guy. I'm looking at Adam Thielen as potentially filling in that role for the Vikings this year. I'm putting him at number 4. Kupp is notoriously one of the slower straight line receivers in the entire league. So he made his living running basically just hitch routes, slants, flats, all those sort of things in the short to midfield. And Adam Thielen throughout his career has never had any problem with speed. He ran a 4.39 40 at his combine, I think. Obviously a little bit older now, so it's going to be a bit slower, but he's definitely still faster than Kupp. So athleticism is not any sort of problem. So if the Vikings can find a way under Kevin O'Connell to sort of put him in that Cooper Kupp role in the middle of the field there, I think he's going to be in for a great year. And then the touchdown numbers are going to speak for themselves too. I think he's going to provide a huge impact on the red zone still.
All right. So that is Adam Thielen at number 4. And yeah, that is a theory that I have not heard yet, because we're so engulfed in thinking Jefferson's going to get 200 targets and 2,000 yards that while most of us believe Thielen will be a benefactor from a pass happy offense, I don't think theory has been notably advanced that he could slide in and share the Cooper Kupp role, especially considering some of his similarities to Kupp. Thielen's pretty quick, but he's not crazy fast, or not going to blaze away on a 40-yard dash. So, all right. So Cook, Kendricks, Hunter, O'Neill, Thielen, we are into your top 3. And I think we know 2 have to be spoken for. So who's number 3?
Number 3 is a guy you're probably not thinking of right now. Honestly, Cam Dantzler, I think, is in for one of the breakout years in the entire league this season. He was, from week 10 to week 16 of the 2020 season, he was PFF's very best cornerback in the entire league. Opposing offenses, they were better off just spiking the ball into the ground than actually targeting him. That was how good his opposing passer rater was in 2020. And it makes absolutely no sense that he played virtually no role for that Vikings defense last year. The fact that they were throwing up Bashaud Breeland instead of him for a lot of those games, that's just part of the testament that I think Mike Zimmer's time, it was over in Minnesota, and it was time for a new era. His stubbornness was kind of getting in the way there, I think. And I think Cam Dantzler is going to fill into that starting CB1 role, and he's going to thrive. He's going to blossom this year.
That's one thing I don't think we'll ever figure out, but I really want to know is why Dantzler was ixnayed for the first handful of games. I really am just curious if it's something like devious that he did, and then we'd find out like, oh, okay, I get it. He did blah blah blah, and you can't do that. Or if it's just something like, he said the wrong catchphrase and pissed off the Parcelsian coach, like, something petty or trivial. That's what I wish we could know. Unless Dantzler gets cornered and has to explain himself, I don't think we'll ever know for sure. So that one is a surprise. That means for sure somebody is left off the list that has probably been with the Vikings for quite some time. But we'll recap that here in about 5 minutes. So who is number two?
Number two, I'm going to throw Justin Jefferson there just because he's one of the most prolific receivers in the league. Like he told the Ringer last week, he thinks he's going to be the top receiver by the end of the year. I think so too, honestly. He's got that kind of talent. He should thrive in this Kevin O'Connell system with Kirk Cousins at his quarterback, Thielen, all that receiver depth they've got this year. I think Jefferson's going to continue to just progress up and up and up throughout the league ranks this season.
And with your theory on Thielen sharing some of the wealth, does that taper your expectations that perhaps Jefferson won't have 1,900 yards and 16 touchdowns? Or do you think he can still do that while Thielen also makes a humongous name for himself?
I don't know if 1,900 yards is really what's going to happen this year, but if he goes out there and puts up another, let's say 1,600 like last year, I think that's totally doable, even with Thielen getting some of that load. So
yeah, and I tell you what, 1,600 yards plus like a record of 11-6 or 12-5 feels a lot better, and it gets a lot more notoriety than the 7-9 bullshit or 8-9 bullshit, which he's experienced his first 2 years. And that's why I've said this a couple months ago on one of these shows, is that they got to start winning to keep him happy, because if they do 8-9 again, like it's not a foregone conclusion that he would want to come back here. They don't have supermax deals in football to lure the guys in. So they got to win sooner or later. Otherwise you flirt with the idea of him being disgruntled with the enterprise. And when it's time for him to sign a veteran deal, he's like, no, screw you. I'm going to the Cowboys or something crazy like that. All right, we are down to number one. The lead up was Dalvin Cook at number 8, Aaron Kendricks, number 7, Danielle Hunter at number 6, Brian O'Neill, number 5, Adam Thielen, number 4, Cameron Dantzler, shockingly at number 3, Justin Jefferson, number 2. Who is number 1?
Number 1, you might get a little bit of pushback for this one, but at the end of the day, quarterback position, especially in Minnesota, it is completely irreplaceable. So I'm going Kirk Cousins at number 1. I think he's set to thrive under Kevin O'Connell's pass first system. We won't have these dink and dunk third and long passes anymore. Hopefully, hopefully we don't put ourselves in that sort of situation as much anymore either. So I think he's going to have a great year. He's always been at least a top 10 quarterback in my mind throughout this league. So if he continues to play at a consistently above average level, plus how much the Vikings need him in order to have success, I think you have to put him at number 1.
All right. And do you think, is this kind of the same thing we just talked about with Jefferson, where Cousins throws 33 touchdowns, 7 picks this year, and it just feels a lot rosier because they're 11-6 or something? Or do you think his total climbs to that 38, 39 touchdowns?
I don't think 38, 39, even 40 touchdowns is totally unfeasible for Cousins this year. I think, especially if they actually are going to go pass first and he's actually throwing, especially Dalvin Cook, if he gets some of those receptions as well in the red zone, that just adds another weapon for him to pass to. I think his production can go up this year.
All right, so I will go through them one final time, and then I've identified something about your rankings here. Dalvin Cook, number 8, 7, Eric Kendricks, 6, Danielle Hunter, 5, Brian O'Neill, 4, Adam Thielen, 3, Cameron Dantzler, 2, Justin Jefferson, and 1, the QB1, Kirk Cousins. You, sir, are anti-Smith. You have
anti-Smith.
Yep, you have no Harrison Smith, no Zadarius Smith, no Irv Smith. So in which one did you have to ixnay that was excruciating? Was there any of those, or just did they even register for you?
So like I mentioned, I think Zadarius and Danielle are probably interchangeable if you really wanted to go that route.
Okay.
But I figured for content purposes, I'd rather not talk about two different edge rushers that are basically going to be doing the same thing for the Vikings. So I think those two are interchangeable. The one that hurt was definitely Harrison Smith, just because he's a Vikings legend. So I do think that Lewis Seen and Cam Bynum are going to take a little bit more of that role this year at the safety position. So he might just be sitting back there waiting to make big plays every now and then. So I think his impact will be felt. It just might not be as much as we have in recent years.
Okay. And then Irv probably wouldn't be included in too many unless it's bold takes for a top 8 because he didn't play last year. But do you foresee a handsome season for him, like 700 yards, 10 touchdowns, 5-10 touchdowns, or do you think that he turns out to be a bust?
I think it's possible for him to approach that 700-yard mark this year, maybe throw in 5-6 touchdowns. But at the end of the day, you also have to look at this offense, and someone's not going to get the ball as much as we think they're going to. Like, there's only one football. So I think Jefferson, Thielen, they're shoo-ins. They're going to get the ball a lot unless injury strikes for some reason. Cook will probably get his receptions plus his touches out of the backfield. So I think Irv Smith might be the one that's just hung out to dry sometimes, some weeks. So
yeah, if you surf the internet for any amount of time in the Vikings realms, you'll see articles forecasting Irv Smith breakout, articles forecasting a KJ Osborne further emergence. But Osborne was able to emerge the way that he was because Smith wasn't hogging targets. Like Smith, based on the way that he's hyped up sometimes, he should approach like those Travis Kelce number of targets, like 130, 140. And to your point, those aren't going to be available unless you subtract the targets from somewhere, which is probably Osborne. And it would be weird to subtract them from Thielen or Jefferson. So, all right, sir. The anti-Smith version of the top 8 didn't have Eddie in there. Why don't we reconvene next Wednesday, and I'll send a topic your way. You got any closing arguments for the group?
I'm going to plug something. I'm going to plug my college football previews that are going on Purple PTSD right now. Yeah. Talked about the Cincinnati Bearcats yesterday. We're going over the Houston Cougars today. So even if you're not into college football yet, you just still want to get some of those Vikings draft takes. I've got a few guys listed in these that looking forward to for the 2023 draft. So yeah, watch them during the 2022 season and you'll get a bit of a preview of what I'm talking about. So,
all right. And that is purpleptsd.com. That was Joe Johnson's first site. And Josh also crosses over and writes on my site, Vikings Territory. All right, sir. Well, you have a wonderful day and we'll talk to you in a week.
Sounds good. See ya.
Later.